Fox News, Jesse Waters says that the Palestinians are hostile and uneducated. All right, here we go.
This population in Palestine is hostile, it's uneducated, it's even more radicalized than they were at the beginning of this. I mean, now they have no homes at all. They're even more hateful of the Israelis. And their birth rate is explosive. The average Palestinian woman has 5.5 babies. The average Israeli woman has only 2.5 babies. So demographically, they're a threat, not to mention the national security threat. There is no way you can have these two peoples living side by side.
Put it up full mass. Fox News is hostile and uneducated, sir. Palestinians are attempting to survive an all-out assault on their very existence. On Tuesday's edition of The Five, the show's panelists discussed President Donald Trump's ultimatum for Hamas to release all Israeli hostages by Saturday. Trump vowed chaos could and should consume the Gaza Strip if Hamas did not resume its end of a ceasefire. Quote, Hamas could miscalculate because they want to stretch the negotiation once they give away all hostages. They don't have any more bargaining chips. This is what Waters theorized. He added that Israel called Hamas out on breaking the deal. It would have to risk the lives of hostages and that Hamas had little to lose by going back on the agreement. It's ironic that from the United Nations to the International Criminal Court, they have deemed that actually the government of Israel has basically played a game in their negotiations and developed a consistent protocol of violating agreements that they have made and engaged in actual criminal warfare, criminal war crimes. This is all alleged by not only the UN, but other countries that are part of the UN. But according to Waters, this is a different scenario. Now, he has an issue with the birth rate. I thought you all liked babies. I thought you were pro-life. Oh, I get it. Just not for, okay, I understand. I thought you were for family construct. I thought you were for the babies, children, the elderly maybe. How about this part? Who's at war with the Palestinians? Nobody, at least according to the paperwork. You see, the memos and the paper and all of the activations of war says the Palestinians are at war with nobody. So why are the Palestinians being utilized as a proxy to deal with Hamas? We already know, because that's what this was from the beginning. Now you all are starting to say it out loud. In regards to Waters' claims that Palestinians were uneducated, so let's get to it. Last year it was reported that Gaza's education system, that more than 40% of the schools, 288 in Gaza, are run by the UN Relief and Work Agency, while the rest are either directly operated by Palestinian Authority or privately managed. All of them are currently shut, as more than 85% of Gaza's 2.3 million people have been displaced amid continued Israeli ground and air offensive that has killed more than 25,000 people, including 10,000 children. That's according to the UN data from 2018. Gaza had 737 schools. At least 9,367 teachers work in the 288 UN sanctioned and operated institutions. Up to 280 government schools and 65 UN-run schools have been destroyed or damaged, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Education. 90% of Palestinian Authority schools have been subject to direct or indirect damage. About 29% of school buildings are out of service after being demolished or severely damaged. Save the Children's director for Palestine, Jason Lee, said in October, quote, attacks on civilian infrastructure, including schools and hospitals where children are seeking refuge, are beyond unconscionable. This war is eroding humanity and is spiraling out of control, end quote. Israel has attacked multiple schools serving as shelters, killing displaced Palestinians. In November 2023, Israeli forces attacked the UN-run Al-Fakari school, killing at least 15 people. A week after that, at least 25 people were killed in Al-Barak, the Al-Barak school. December 2023, several were killed in attacks on Shadia Abu Ghazala school. It is not just schools that have borne the brunt of the Israeli onslaught. Centers of higher education, including universities, have been completely, utterly paralyzed. Palestinian news agency, WAFA, reported that 12 higher education institutions in Gaza have been damaged or completely destroyed, disrupting the entire university education system. Let's go to Al Jazeera's chart. It shows that 4,327 students and 231 teachers and administrators have been killed. Those are just the numbers back in January 2024. We do not have the updated numbers. What is mentioned, birth rates, echoes the idea of the Great Replacement theory. This is when they go full racist. In the Southern Poverty Law Center's article about white nationalists, another deeply related myth is the deceptively titled human biodiversity, or the pseudoscientific belief that different races are genetically different, and that these differences influence propensity toward criminality and other traits. Appeals to the bogus empirical science of human biodiversity are frequently coupled with thinly veiled nods to white racial superiority. In addition to obsession with declining white birth rates, these themes inspire some of the most powerful propaganda that animates and drives the white nationalist movement. You heard Jesse Waters basically repeat the stance of the white nationalist movement. He utilized the page from their indoctrination handbook in order to justify killing children, to justify killing women, grandmothers and grandfathers, non-combatants who happen to be Palestinian. Adherents frequently cite Pat Buchanan's 2001 book, The Death of the West, which argues that these declining white birth rates and an, quote, immigrant invasion would transform the United States into a so-called third world nation by 2050, as the text responsible for their awakening or red pill. White nationalists also frequently cite American Renaissance, a pseudo-academic organization dedicated to spreading the myth of Black criminality, scientific racism, and eugenic theories. His annual conference, a multi-day symposium with a suit and tie dress code, is a typical early stop for new white nationalists. Yasmin, thoughts here? You're on mute, Yasmin.
There you go. The irony of calling people uneducated when their schools have been bombed, also to call people who constantly have to fight for their homes hostile, is completely unhinged. He said they're even more hostile now towards the Israelis because they have even fewer houses than they used to. Does he not hear the words that are coming out of his mouth? Why would they not be hostile towards the people who have bombed all their homes? The baby thing, how many Palestinian babies have been lost in the school and hospital bombings? Now you're going to demonize these people for trying to rebuild their families and for trying to preserve their culture. It's diabolical. It's like so evil. It's so evil. Look, this goes back to ancient wisdom. It delves into political and economic thought and theory and even societal thought and theory. The more stable a society is, the more philosophical they're able to be, right? Philosophical thought, things like social justice and demographic projections, et cetera. Those are privileged conversations that people like us here in the United States are able to have. Those are privileged conversations that people in Israel are able to have. And the reason why we can worry about things like that is because we're not constantly worried that our home or our families will be bombed into oblivion. And I imagine it's very difficult for Palestinians to think about literally anything else when that is their primary concern. People cannot trouble themselves with things like higher thought and education, even lower levels of education and literacy, when they're constantly worrying about whether or not their most basic human needs will be met when they exist completely in survival mode. And amongst all of the injustices that we've seen in Palestine, that is one that isn't discussed as often. Several generations of children have had their futures stolen from them. They will not be able to recover from this anytime soon. The buildings can be rebuilt. Yes, we don't know what the future of Palestine is going to be. It sounds a little murky right now, judging from the things that President Trump has been saying lately. But the trauma that these people have suffered will be with them for the foreseeable future. It'll be with those people probably long after we are all gone. And I know that that sounds dramatic, but 100 years really is not that long in the grand scheme of history and geopolitics. But on a personal level, on a more current level, it is nothing short of devastating. And these people are going to be dealing with this for a long time.
Boniface said, against stupidity, we are defenseless. And we're seeing that happen now, where Waters to say something this insane, Trump will say something even more insane. Mm-hmm. You attempt to have a logical conversation, but see, when you are actually fighting authentic stupidity, logic simply bounces off of these individuals and you're left in a conversation with a brick wall.